everybody, and welcome to another episode of the RXP podcast. I'm your host today. It's Tiffany, and I'm joined by my co-host, Alex.
You know, listeners out there, if you've never had a mochi donut, you should go and try and get a mochi donut.
And Matt.
What's a mochi donut?
It's
delicious. Fried mochi.
And it's delicious.
It sounds full of gluten.
Is mochi glutinous?
That's a good question.
Is mochi
I don't
glutinous
know.
rice?
Dang, I don't know.
I
was hoping you guys
flour.
would know.
We don't worry about the gluten, so who knows?
Dang.
I have a gluten-filled diet. But anyway, so this episode is episode 69.
Nice.
And both of you.
Sorry.
Delayed reaction.
Sorry, I was looking up what mochi was, all right?
It's a rice cake. A mochi is a rice cake.
It's a filling
glutinous?
for mochi is sweet red bean paste.
Yes.
And
it is.
It's gluten-free as it is made with rice flour.
Yeah, rice flour.
So I can have a mochi donut?
Yeah, you know what? Is there regular flour in a mochi donut? We'll have to look that up. We'll probably have to look that up.
Okay.
Actually, the company will probably say if they're gluten-free.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll Instagram them and ask if their recipe is gluten-free.
Mm.
But anyway, so funny that Alex should mention the mochi donut. For audio listeners, well, I guess all the listeners, video or audio, we are recording this episode in May. Happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. Alex and I are both Asian American, and we're pretty excited. Mainly because this is related to the topic that we're going to talk about today for me. I have a point to make.
Ooh,
so,
okay.
Our topic for today is discussing situations, times, talking about anecdotes, about when we kind of fell out of something that we really enjoyed and then found our ways back to those things, whether they're hobbies, whether it's intellectual property, whether it's just some situations in general. We're just going to have a free-flowing conversation today.
Mm.
And I'm going to go ahead and start the topic because this whole topic and discussion was kind of inspired by what has happened to me recently. So I have a confession to make, Alex and Matt.
Yes.
I have read 29 books in the last 7 weeks.
Wow. That's impressive.
That's a lot of books.
So basically, when I was growing up, I was like ferocious reader. I read so much. I was constantly at the library. I volunteered at the library with the perks of like not having overdue fines. Not that my books were ever overdue because I really didn't keep them that very long. I was constantly borrowing books and like, reading by staying up super late, like forgetting to eat. Like I just would just read. And that was my life when I was in like middle school, in high school, and early undergrad. I really kind of fell out of reading that much back when, I think in the last decade, maybe in the last decade, I kind of just stopped like really reading a lot. I never really found that many new books, I felt like I was missing our generation's like Harry Potter or Hunger Games. Like I just couldn't find a series that really captured my attention. But about 7 weeks ago, I had extra Google Play money from like doing these Google surveys, and I decided that I was like, I haven't read a book in a while. Maybe I'll like get an ebook, because at the time, a few discussions ago, we talked about how I wasn't huge into ebooks, more of a physical book kind of gal. Well, now I'm a mixture of both, but I found a book. I liked it. It was very interesting.
She's now a trans book.
It's a trans. What do you mean it's a trans book?
You're now trans book. You're a little bit of both. Before you said you're
e-book.
only paper or hard copy.
Oh,
now
paper.
You're also ebook.
Okay, so I'm both. So I the book was interesting. It was called the Atlas Six. The genre is called dark academia, which I'd never heard before. It's like, I feel like that's a new genre in the last like 5 years. It was huge apparently on TikTok, or what the community calls book talk.
Oh.
And I mean, I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I didn't like love it, but I did like devour it. Like I read it like in 2 days. And then I'm looking forward to the sequel. Anyway, moving a little bit forward. So I was like, wow, I read a book. And it was like a random book. It wasn't like I have a lot of books in my backlog, like just hanging around. I keep buying. I would probably say in the last 10 years, I maybe bought like 3 or 4 books a year and just like haven't gotten to them. But anyway, one of the things that I was kind of looking at when I was looking for other books to read, because I had, within my 7 weeks, I have had vacation time. So I would like to tell the audience that there were many days where I did not go to work. So I was able to read a lot. Like that's part of it, right? I'm not just completely like going off 5 hours of sleep a night or something. But I found out that in the last like 10 years, there's been more diversity in books, in young adult books, in adult books, where growing up, when I was reading, Harry Potter, there was literally one Asian character, or rather there was like a handful of Asian characters in Harry Potter, right? You had like the Patel sisters and then Cho Chang and like no one else.
I mean, that's realistic though, right? Like how many Asian people are in the UK?
There's a lot of people.
Prove it. Listeners out there, write it. If you're Asian, you live in England, write it.
Literally, people in England have said that their like national people think their national dish is fish and chips, but it's really chicken tikka masala. Okay, like it's a very large population there. Anyway, so I found a couple young adult fantasy books that basically were Asian inspired and written by Asian authors, and I adored them. Like seeing the way their clothes are descripted, hearing the way they really honored their family, and like the weapons that they used. I like freaking fell in love. One of the books was called 6 Crimson Cranes, which is actually based off of a like fairy tale, like a German fairy tale about 6 crows or something. I don't know, but it's inspired by like a Western fairy tale. And then the other book was called Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is based off of a Chinese folktale of the goddess that lives on the moon, who like has this tragic backstory. Anyway, these 2 books, I loved them so much. And then I started finding other books written by Asian authors, and I was like, wow, there's so much more that were literally published in the last 5 years. And that brought me a lot of joy in seeing or reading about more people like me. And so that turned into me just like grabbing at a bunch of different books and getting really excited about it. And to have read 29 books in 7 weeks, that's like an average of 4 books a week. Like, I don't know. I haven't really been playing any video games. I haven't been watching any shows. I haven't been really doing some of the other stuff because I got back into it. Have you guys ever felt like this before?
Well, I want to ask, how many of these books were like in the same series? So like, or were they mostly individual stories?
So sadly, the 6 Crimson Cranes and Daughter of the Moon Goddess were book 1 in a duology, which, by the way, I am so happy that we're going into duologies now. I'm not gonna lie. Like, sometimes I'm over the whole trilogy thing. Like, do you really need it to be a trilogy? Like, does it need to be 3 books? I don't know. That was such a fad. But in these situations, these 2 books are going to be duologies, and they're coming out later this year. So that was one thing that made my heart hurt, is that I have to wait until August and wait until November to read the sequels for both of these books. But supposedly that's it. That's the end. Wait, what was the other part of that question? You were just asking me.
I was asking how many were like of series.
A series, right. And one of them or 2 of them have been in a series. So I also read this other book called The Poppy War. I bought this one is a trilogy. I'm actually only in the middle of book 2 because I sort of like almost fell out of it. But I bought all 3 like ahead of time. Like I bought the 3rd book before I even finished book 2 because I thought I would be ready to move on. But the Poppy War is like this Chinese inspired or Asian inspired fantasy, which takes a lot of historical references and mutates it into like parallel situations in this universe. So like literally the first book is like almost like the opium wars that happened between like Japan and China, but they're not called Japan and China. Like they're 2 different entities. But yeah, that was a trilogy. And this other book series I read is a series that has 5 books out, and I've read 4 of the 5. And it's supposed to be like an 8-book series. So I have to wait for that. So that's another thing. It's dangerous to get into a series when it's not complete because waiting for these books to come out is also agony. Because you guys know I get on the hype train.
Oh yeah.
I'm a hype girl. I found out one of these other books I read, the sequel's coming out on my birthday, and I'm like, how could this be more fortuitous? I don't know.
So the majority of the stories though are
standalone,
which is actually more impressive that despite, or not despite, but it would seem easier if a lot of these were series, right? Because then you would just go from one to the next and then kind of get through it, whether it's a trilogy or more or less. But it really does goes to show, it does seem like, as you mentioned at the beginning about the whole, as you were younger and the books you read back then were from a perspective that you didn't necessarily associate with. And it seems like a lot of this passion is coming from the fact that, I can associate more with these characters, or these make more sense to me, and it's easier for me to like imagine it. And that I think is a very strong way of like seeing all this, is that, you can relate to it more. And that's how it's like part of the, if not the main reason, it seems, that really got you back into reading.
Yeah. And then also like even finding a lot of Korean ethnic authors has been really fun and nice, like seeing those perspectives, whether they're Korean American or Korean Canadian or whatever. But I've really also like sort of found my cadence with finding out that if I read a book and I liked it, I looked up what the author had also written. So that's partly how I found so many other books and how quickly I'm like moving through, because I'm almost moving through an author catalog, like Matt, if like Christopher Nolan, like you found Christopher Nolan and you liked like 2 of his movies and you're like, I need to get this guy's like filmography and watch what other stuff he's made, Yeah. So I've really enjoyed everything that most of the things I've read. There were a couple books where I'm like, wow, I should have just stopped reading. This was not worth my time. I mean, like, I was like, wow, that was really, okay. I'm not gonna say the name of the book, but essentially, you guys, I was like, wow, this felt like a mediocre fan fiction that I just read. Like, could have been unedited, published on a website. I don't even know why I finished it. But yeah, have you guys ever?
So do you think that you'll be able to keep this up?
No.
Okay.
This is not sustainable. Matt, this is not
like, it's impressive. It's very impressive. Like, but you're basically just replacing like one form of media for another.
Yes.
And now, like, I wonder, like, do you think that maybe you won't still be like reading like 20 some books every 7 weeks, but do you think that a part of like your TV watching or your video game playing is going to be replaced by books?
That's a great question. So this is where I also want to talk about I want to talk about how we schedule recording our episode today. So listeners, we're recording on a Monday, and I had asked my compatriots here if they were willing or able to record on Wednesday, and Matt said he cannot. And I said, okay, can we record on Thursday? And then he reminded me that on Thursday we shall be seeing Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness, which I had completely forgot about, which is outrageous.
What a fake fan. Fake fan.
That I completely forgot about. And then, so the only other options, because I couldn't do Friday, were going to be Monday or Tuesday, Well, today's Monday. And do you know my my reason for not being able to record on Tuesday?
Do you want to read something that comes out tomorrow?
It's because a book comes out tomorrow.
Unbelievable.
A book comes out tomorrow that I've been waiting for like a month and a half because I found out about this one author and I read 2 of her books and I loved one of them. I thought the other one was whatever. And then this other book that comes out tomorrow, the premise just sounds so good that I'm literally like I'm going to try to leave 20 minutes early. I'm going to haul myself to a bookstore, freaking get it, and get home and like get in my jammies and just read and literally not go to sleep. So that is why I cannot do anything tomorrow. So Matt, I already know
Is that also why you're not doing
sustainable.
trivia tomorrow? Because you
Yes.
gotta...
Yes, I'm literally not doing trivia tomorrow.
You're like, I am not having any socialization. I'm going to sit
not
at
having
home.
I'm going to sit at home and read this darn book. So anyway, going back to my other hobbies, I know this isn't sustainable. I've basically gotten to the point where I've found a few authors and series that I've liked. And so now I'm having to wait for the future installments, and I've glazed through the back catalog of some of the authors that I've found that I've enjoyed in the last month, and I've sort of picked and choosed what I was interested in. And so there's already a situation with 2 of the books that I have started in the last 7 weeks that I haven't finished that I want to, but I feel like I'm stalling on that, right? So I think in the next couple weeks, I'm probably going to mellow out. And honestly, you guys, partly I need a show to come out that's going to like reinvigorate my show watching. Same thing with video games. So June is around the corner, and I'm looking forward to Boys season 3, Umbrella Academy season 3. I just need my stuff to come back, okay? And then, I need Marvel's Midnight Suns to have a release date. I need other things to come out video game wise. I previously talked about before how Kirby in the Forgotten Land is not cutting it right now. So once the games start rolling, like I imagine myself like finally getting some balance. I do have to say, though, in my fervor of reading, I also joined this subscription service called Book of the Month, which is a service where you get a choice every month of 5 to 7 books, and you get to pick one that you want as your book of the month, and then it will be mailed to you with free shipping, and then you read it. And I found out about this through a friend. And let me just say, the excitement of like waiting till like the 30th or the 31st of a month to see what the selections are for the next month, and to look up reviews and then decide which book to pick, and then to get it into like that just sounds so exciting. Like it's just so exciting. I haven't had a surprise in so long. And I do want to say, Matt, the fact that we're so close to another Marvel film, in the weeks leading up to a Marvel film, it's very dangerous territory for me. I straight up I'm a member of the Marvel Studios spoiler subreddit, and I will glance through the subreddit as we get closer. But can I just say that because I'm like too quote unquote busy reading, I'm not wasting time on Reddit anymore. Like I heard there are leaks that have been posted, and guess what? I haven't even been tempted because I'm literally nose buried in a fiction book.
Yeah.
Why are you shaking your head at me? You should be proud of me.
This is good. This is good because the last Marvel movie, the last Marvel movie we watched together, there was like an after credit scene, and I was like, "What?" And you're like, "Yeah, blah blah blah." Like you already knew everything about it, and you'd already like looked it up, and I was like, why are you the way that you are? So I'm glad that
But you
we're both
still appreciate me.
I do appreciate you, but I'm glad that we'll be able to watch it without you knowing.
I won't
anything.
know how many after credit scenes are.
That's
I
great.
literally will know nothing.
That's great. That's the way to do it.
Because tonight I'm going to go to bed. Tomorrow I'm going to read a book. Wednesday I'm going to
Wednesday
read another
should
book.
be
Who knows?
spoiled.
Yeah. If that book is too short, she's going to get spoiled.
Yeah.
I hope it's long.
But yeah, so this was my soapbox for the last 15 minutes. Does anyone else want to talk?
Sure. I think, and it seemed like Matt alluded to it, right? With the whole, has reading replaced like your other forms of entertainment? And obviously, we have limited free time here. And, for reasonable people, you're only doing one thing at a time. It's not like you're reading a book, playing a game, watching a show all at the same time. Or maybe there's amazing multitaskers out there that's like, this is how I get through everything. 3 times speed, like the show. I'm skim reading the novel, like I'm reading every 4th word. And then that game, you know what? Auto battler. It's like, you're not even playing the game. But yeah, I think for me, it really comes down to, I don't know if I've ever like truly fallen out of like really being into something, but it's more so just finding something else as a replacement. Mm-hmm. And like the two main things that come to mind, both gaming related, are, during college, I wasn't, and by allowed, I mean, I wasn't allowed to have a console while I was on campus and during college because my parents didn't want me to. And so a lot of my gaming was mostly on the computer, right? I had a laptop. Obviously you can play games on your laptop on PC. But pretty much I only really played League of Legends. Like that was like my main game during college. But obviously due to that fact, I really didn't play a lot of console games. Like there are a lot of things that came out, during the college years that I just ended up not playing or missing. And it wasn't until I graduated and, was able to go back home, had some downtime, finally got a job, obviously have downtime during the job, that I got back into console gaming. So there were a lot of things where I felt like even though I was still gaming just in a different space, I was like missing out on kind of like the major stuff that was releasing at that time. And I like also had to catch up like later, right? And so things like the rebooted Tomb Raider came out during that time that I missed originally. Stuff like The Last of Us Part 1 that originally came out, I also missed. And so a lot of these kind of like bigger titles that you probably recognize more mainstream, where I'm like, hey, I was like a lot of people where I didn't play these till years after they came out. And like to me, right, playing a lot of these new games on release, especially these days, it's like unheard of, right? Especially for spoiler reasons of like, how do you dodge spoilers for that long? Well, just because I wasn't in the space, I was able to avoid it. And so definitely I just kind of like flipped out of console gaming onto PC gaming and then flipped from PC back to console. And in similar line to that, I would say one of the other games I picked up while I was in college was Hearthstone, the digital card game by Blizzard. And likewise, when I flopped back to console gaming, I really fell out of Hearthstone because, it was meant to be that game that I played on my phone, played it on my laptop. It was a very light game, not resource intensive, but it wasn't something that it was my go-to, right? Like if I wanted to play a game, I wasn't really going to Hearthstone for that. But especially, once I started my new job and I had to move for it, it was that very short turnaround time of me finding myself eventually getting back into Hearthstone. Because, right, going to the office every day, not since the pandemic started, obviously, but when I'm at the office, there's downtime, there's breaks. I'm not, you're not working 24/7 while you're on the job. Like, I got to go to the bathroom, I got to eat lunch, whatever. And it slowly came back into my life of saying, oh, yeah, I mean, I also don't just want to waste time on Reddit, as Tiffany mentioned. But I could just play Hearthstone, right? A match takes 5-10 minutes at most. 30 minutes if you're playing Control Warrior v Control Warrior. Those of you out there that are listening that get that reference, shout out to you. But yeah, so because those games are so short, it's like such an easy thing to play. And so definitely it feels like whenever the niche has come back that I need something to fill, it's something has filled that gap. And so it's like I'm never not without it. But I guess there are some things where I wish I found my passion to come back. Like I'm still trying to get back into a lot of anime. I don't know if I mentioned previously on the podcast, but I still want to get back to watching One Piece. I just haven't found that motivating factor to finally get me back to watching it. Maybe because there's 600 plus episodes I have to get through, so that's kind of like the anti-motivation,
Daunting.
the deterrent. But yeah, I think once more niches come about, I'll probably fall back into those other things.
Yeah, I feel like I'm closer to Alex. Like, I don't really fall out of my hobbies. I've like stayed pretty consistent. Like whether or not I fall out of running and then catch back up, that's like a little bit different because that's more laziness. But like, I end up getting back to it eventually. But one thing that I definitely fall out mostly is with TV shows. I feel like maybe one TV show a year, maybe two, that really like catch my eye. Like the past like few years, like 2020, it was all about Money Heist. 2021, it was Squid Game. And then 2022, what I actually just finished today was I just watched the finale of The Last Kingdom. I watched all 5 seasons in the past month, and that's like huge for me. Like that's
huge,
unbelievable for me, because that's probably, I think that's maybe 46 episodes.
Dang.
Yeah. So 8 episodes the first 2 seasons, and the last 3 seasons had 10. So like they're hour episodes, like full hour episodes, and just diving into that world. And something about it, like it was very Game of Thrones-esque. And I have a lot of TV shows to look forward to this year because Game of Thrones is coming back this year. Lord of the Rings is coming this year. You know, you talked about The Boys, you talked about Umbrella Academy. I'm looking forward to a lot of TV, but I do watch some TV series, but I feel like I don't get really like grabbed by TV to where it's like, oh, I've got a little bit of time, I'm going to do that. And Alex gives me a hard time about finishing the Marvel's Avengers Platinum this weekend and into today. And a big reason why I was like, I could grind this because I could turn it on mute and watch The Last Kingdom while I play Marvel's Avengers and just grind out these hives. And so that person that does 2 things at a time, totally me. I watched 5 to 6 episodes last night of playing Marvel's Avengers.
You just have to add reading to that, then you have the trifecta.
I know, then I have the trifecta. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it is. But in a more, I guess, rejuvenated IP that I have not been about until recently is actually the Borderlands franchise, because I was big into Borderlands 1. Pretty big into Borderlands 2. Me and my buddy never finished it. I co-opted with a friend from home. He actually doesn't play video games too much anymore, at least for Xbox. He's mostly a Switch guy now. But Alex convinced me, or he didn't really do much convincing. I was pretty game as soon as he asked. We started playing Tiny Tina, and honestly, it's a good example of an IP making themselves fresh to like bring back audiences. Because if they did the same thing, like the same jokes, the same settings and everything, I probably wouldn't have any reason to come back. But that it's kind of like this D&D setting makes me want to come back, and I've had like a really good time. Like, it is a solid game, and yeah, I don't know, that's probably the biggest one that I've probably rejuvenated, at least recently, by.
Has there been anything that you guys have fallen out of that you're not yet back in yet that is worth talking about? Because I actually just thought of one thing for me. Like, you're just waiting to get rejuvenated to get back into it.
I mean, I guess it's weird because it's like One Piece is that for me. I'm still waiting to get back into One Piece. I guess another anime related thing, and maybe because it's how far removed I am and how the show's designed, but I'm going to put it out there. I watch Yu-Gi-Oh!, the anime. I watch it in Japanese. And obviously there's like several seasons of it, but what I really like about Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's, I guess, different than how Pokemon does its anime, is that a lot of the way the Yu-Gi-Oh! Seasons are designed, or that they revolve around like the new mechanics that the card game releases. So it's actually kind of a fun way, even though I don't collect the cards physically anymore. like every so often I'll buy certain sets to be like, oh man, you can get like special versions of the god cards like in this set. So like, let me try my chance at pulling them. But I really like kind of watching the show just to get an idea. I mean, the mechanics don't mirror one-to-one with the card game, but it's still nice to see that they can use at least the show as kind of a vehicle to say, hey, you might not pay attention to the card game, but here's basically the new mechanics. Like, they've added so many things, like additional summoning zones, the different ways to like special summon. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all versions of special summoning, which is just ways of like cheating monsters out from your hand or deck onto the field. But at least it's different in that, especially for the show, makes it pretty entertaining to watch, right? Because it's, you know, it's the very obvious, like exaggerated Japanese acting, like voice acting, like it's very highly animated, a lot of visual effects. It's just a fun time to watch, like even though I really don't care about the card game anymore. But it's something that I also need to get back to, but I'm just kind of waiting for that moment, so to speak, again, to say, all right, time to start watching again from this point.
Right, something to kickstart you. Matt, do you? Or
as far as like things that like are on my radar to like get back to, I know I talk trash a lot about Overwatch 1. I'm not going to lie, when I start hearing people talking about Overwatch 2, it makes me think, could I? Would I? Because the thing is, like, everyone who has Overwatch 1 has Overwatch 2. Like, the multiplayer, at least. And it's like, so I could try, because I still have it on the Xbox. So I'm intrigued. Will I try it? Maybe. Potentially. Maybe not for long. But I'm going to keep the door open. Because, like, honestly, it's still probably one of my favorite games of all time. But I've kind of, like, really hit it off. Like, I hit it off at the beginning, but then it kind of like slammed close. Yeah. Mm-hmm, and so I don't know, maybe I'll give it a whirl. It's one of those things where it's funny because I was talking trash even just last episode, but now that people are like playing the beta, I was like, that sounds fun though. Like all these reworks of characters I know. It's like, oh, I hated Orisa. And it's like, oh, she's fun now. It's like, oh, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for like the meta? Like, I don't even know what that means. Oh, it's not 6 characters versus 6 characters, 5v5. Like, what does that mean? I have no idea. So I don't know. It seems like they're trying to like make it a little bit more fun. So I don't know. Maybe I'll give that a go.
Oh, that sounds great. Like one thing that the pandemic ruined for me is board games. So I own over 150 board games, and
that's so crazy,
preposterous.
Like that's not including expansions.
Mm-hmm.
So like I might own up to 200 anyway. So because of the pandemic, you know, meeting in person, socializing, touching the same dice between hands, touching cards, all that stuff was very scary in the beginning. Obviously, we know now that COVID-19 is not really transferred via contact with like surfaces. But I've technically fallen out of board games because I haven't been able to really play the ones that I love. You know, the strategic board games that I have. I've in the last year, you know, ramped up some party game stuff, which is really fun. But I have a lot of strategy games that I really enjoy. And I've also like maybe have bought like one board game in the last 4 months. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if I have, which is wild because like obviously like a couple years ago, I was literally buying games like monthly. Like I was buying board games when a new game designer came out with a new game and I was into it. I got it. I would wait for sales at the end of the year. Target does a fabulous buy two get one free. Like I would stock up on the games I've been waiting for and I'd play them. So really I'm waiting to get back into the thick of it and I'm pretty excited. Like Matt's made fun of me before because I've come to a game night with some games that have been not unwrapped. Like they're still wrapped. And he's like,
they're like mint condition.
And that's because I've been waiting to play it with people. And I haven't opened it. And I got a good deal.
You know what I'm looking?
Audience, I need you.
In the same vein, I'm ready for Smash parties again. Like, I am ready for Super Smash Brothers tournaments, and we've been talking about this at work. We need to do it because basically ever since like the pandemic, I've been wanting to do something like that because it's just so much fun. And it seems like something of like a different life because it was so long ago that something like that happened safely.
Yeah.
So it's like, we need to bring back the renaissance of hanging out with a group of friends with board games and Switch.
You heard it here. Matt's down to Smash.
No, I know what you mean. Like, I want that again. I want to be able to play board games and play Smash Bros. And Mario Kart and all that stuff in person. Obviously, some of our peeps have had bebés, like, during the pandemic. So it's also challenging. Because, audience, we talk about the limited time that we have because we're 3 working professionals who love video games, TV shows, and movies.
Way to sneak that in there here.
Yeah.
Once you have a small child to take care of, all the time goes even smaller, or the free time you have gets even smaller and gets thrown out the window. And I totally get it because keeping a human alive takes a lot of work. More power to everyone who does that. But yeah, I think having that renaissance would be amazing because I have a lot of games to play and to teach.
Luckily for us, we are the babies in our household. We just need to keep ourselves alive.
Yeah, we're our own. We claim ourselves as dependents on our tax forms.
I mean, by proxy, does that also extend to escape rooms? Or has, like, the escape room, like, life still carried on through the pandemic?
For me, I wouldn't say I've fallen out of escape rooms because I feel like my escape room hobby has stayed consistent. Because at this point, I have to physically go somewhere else to do an escape room because I've done the local ones. Mm-hmm. And so far, I have done escape rooms when I have traveled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Alex, when I visited you, how many did we do? We did like 3 or 4. Did we do 4? We did 3 or 4. He's not even gonna partake in this conversation, but we did one of the best.
I was just proposing
rooms.
the question.
The question. We did one of Alex's top 3 escape rooms. Is that correct, Alex?
Oh man, might be my number 1. I think it's
Whoa.
Whoa, number 1, and definitely that one escape room is in my top 5. So that hobby is still keeping strong. I'm gonna say it. I'm still invigorated by it. if I can say so myself. But anyway. Any final comments for episode 69?
Nice.
I think a lot of things in terms of with how the world is kind of healing, but also not really healing at the same time, that like hobbies will definitely change, especially as people move, as new things come out, as new things get updated, right? Like for Matt, kind of technically, even though it's Overwatch 2, it feels like just an update to Overwatch. And so maybe that's what it took to get it back in. And then also for you, it's like a new book's coming out in the series. And then for me, it's like, I hope for it. It probably won't happen. But if Square wants to remake some of the older games in the HD 2D fashion, that'd be great. Also, I had a crazy idea. It will never happen. But what if Square Enix, and maybe this goes into the point of, I might have a slight resurgence in my interest in Pokemon. But what really would get me excited was if Square Enix loaned out their engine to Game Freak and they remade any of the older Pokemons in that HD 2D style. So going back to the sprites, But just imagine like the moves, the visual effects, the new lighting system that are in those games. Like those could be a great remake of the original games, like of any
That'd
of
be
them, like any
sweet.
previous gen.
That would be sweet. I would play those in a dang heartbeat.
I would play those too.
Because there is something that like those old sprites, like those 2D sprites, have some charm. That yeah, Sword and Shield look kind of fine. Even Sun and Moon and X and Y, like the 3D models are fine, but they're still a little low res. But those sprites, man, HD 2D. You know, Nintendo, talk to Square. They're looking for money. Right now.
Also they still have those dang sound effects.
Oh yeah,
like, all that
is the
Oh
weird thing of
my
like, yeah, you can use that, Game Freak.
Alex, if that's not part of the stinger through this episode, I will riot. I will riot. I don't even know what that was.
It was a sound effect of a Pokemon. It's the same one in the last 25 years.
That's where it's from.
Anyway. Anyway, you guys, audience, I hope you like this walk down memory lane for me. If you want any book recs, hit your girl up. Email us at rxp.podcast@gmail.com. Tweet at us at rxp_podcast. Like and subscribe to our YouTube video. Comment down below. I will give you book recs. I'm going to tell you now, my favorite genres are young adult, new adult, fantasy, sci-fi, romance.
Wait, what about that like dogmatic thing or something that you mentioned?
Dogmatic.
Or like dark drama, theater?
No, it's dark academia.
Dark academia.
It's dark academia. Wait. Okay, first of all, I do need to look up more dark academia books because I'm not going to lie, I'm very intrigued by dark academia. Or just even academia in general. Student's gonna student. You know what I mean? Anyway, thanks for listening. These episodes are coming out on a snail's pace here because we're working through some logistical things over the next month or two. So, you know what? Just bear with us. Thanks. Bye. Oh, wait. No. Don't forget the tunes by Grandmaster Doug. Thank you, Grandmaster Doug. And now, goodbye.
Wait, what about that like dogmatic thing?
Fake fan.